Fire fell from the sky like burning rain. The royal palace shook with every blast, and the air was full of screams, smoke, and the sound of crumbling stone. Elira pressed her younger sister Navara against her chest as the ceiling cracked above. Them, the walls that once stood proud and strong, now split apart like dry leaves. Their world, their empire, everything they had known, was dying. Elira's heart pounded hard, and every breath tasted of dust and blood. Navara trembled in her arms, her small hands clutching Elira's torn armor, eyes wide with terror. The ground split under them, throwing them both against the cold marble floor as another explosion rocked the palace. Rubble fell in a storm, of shattered stone and steel beams. Then came the crash, the weight of the ceiling slamming down. The sisters screamed as darkness swallowed them. When Elira opened her eyes, her body ached all over. Her legs were pinned by a heavy block of broken wall, and her arms were scraped raw. She tried to move, but pain burned through her muscles like fire. Beside her, Navara whimpered softly. Elira turned her head and saw her sister lying in the dust, her silver hair tangled and her skin pale, but she was alive. That was all that mattered. Elira bit back the pain and pulled herself closer to Navara. She reached out and touched her sister's face. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you." But even as she said the words, fear clawed at her heart. She knew the truth. They were trapped deep under the ruins of the throne room. The heavy slabs of stone above them blocked the sky, and the only light came from a single crack in the rubble where faint smoke curled through. The sound of the battle outside was fading. The Empire's last defenses had fallen. They were alone now, completely alone. Navara's voice was weak, almost a whisper. "Why did they leave us, Elira? Where are the guards?" Elira felt sharp pain in her chest that had nothing to do with her injuries. The royal guards had sworn to protect them. The generals had sworn to fight to the last breath. And yet, when the walls fell, they ran. All of them. "They're cowards," Elira said bitterly, though her voice broke on the word. She pulled her sister closer, hiding the tears that burned her eyes. Navara clung to her. "Are we going to die?" Elira wanted to say no, wanted to promise safety, but the truth hung heavy in her mind like the stones above them. Still, she would not let fear break her sister. "No," she said softly. "I will not let that happen." She forced herself to look around. The wreckage was everywhere: broken pillars, twisted metal, slabs of marble that once formed the grand throne of their bloodline. Now it was nothing but a tomb. Her fingers found the control on her wristband. She pressed the signal beacon, sending a distress call. A tiny red light blinked weakly. It was working, but would anyone come? The Empire had fallen. The fleets were gone. Who was left to answer? Minutes turned to hours, or maybe it was only moments. Time blurred in the darkness. Elira kept speaking softly to Navara, telling her stories of their childhood, trying to keep her awake, trying to keep her calm. Her own strength was fading. Her breath grew shallow. The pain in her legs was worse now. She could feel the warmth of her own blood soaking into the dust. She knew she could not last long like this. She rested her head against the cold stone and closed her eyes for just a moment, just to breathe. That was when she heard it. A sound, soft at first, like metal scraping against rock. Then footsteps slow, heavy, crunching on broken marble. Elira froze, her heart racing. Navara stirred weakly and whispered, "Do you hear that?" Elira listened. Yes, someone was moving above the rubble. Then came a voice, deep, rough, speaking a language she recognized but never expected to hear here. A human voice. "If anyone's still alive down there." Hold on. Elira's breath caught in her throat. Her mind spun in confusion. A human? Here? Impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak, scattered, almost forgotten. What was one doing in the heart of a fallen empire? She tried to shout, but her throat was dry. She swallowed hard and called out, her voice cracking, "Who are you?" There was a pause. Then the voice answered, calm and firm. "Someone who's not leaving you to die." Alira stared at the crack of light above, her chest tight with shock and rage. Of all the beings in the galaxy, it had to be a human. The same species her people once ruled over. The same species that hated the Empire. She clenched her teeth, anger flaring even as hope stirred in her heart. She wanted to scream at him to leave, to let them die with their honor. But before she could speak, the rubble above shifted with a loud groan of stone. Dust rained down. The human was digging Dot. Would he reach them before the ruins crushed them both? Or before the enemy returned to finish what they started? The sound of breaking stone grew louder. And for the first time since the palace fell, Alira felt something she thought was gone forever. Hope, doubt, and fear of what it might cost. Asterisk. The sound of stone breaking grew sharper. Each crash echoed through the ruins like a heartbeat, slow, steady, closer. Alira tightened her hold on Navara as dust rained down again. The beam of faint light above widened, and through the crack a shadow moved. Then she saw him. A shape in metal armor, dark and heavy, crouched above the rubble. His visor glowed blue, scanning the broken chamber. When he spoke, the sound was deep and strange, but she understood the words. 2 life signs, still alive. Alira froze. Navara stirred weakly, her voice soft as a whisper. Who is that? The human jumped down onto a slab above them with a dull thud, sending pebbles rolling. His armor was scratched, dented, marked by battles she could not imagine. A rifle hung across his back, and at his hip a blade gleamed with old blood stains. His boots crunched the marble dust as he knelt near the crack, peering down at them. "Stay still," he said, voice steady. "I'm getting you out." Alira's eyes burned with anger. Her body shook with pain and pride. "No," she hissed, her voice raw but sharp like steel. "Better to die than owe a human." The visor tilted slightly, like he was amused, or maybe angry. "Yeah? Well, too bad. I don't leave people to die, even when they're stubborn princesses." Her breath caught. How did he know? Her insignia? Her armor was shattered, but the crest on her shoulder still clung like a scar. Of course he knew. She glared up at him, her teeth clenched. "If you touch us, I swear I will." Save the speech, he cut her off. His voice had no fear, no hesitation, just a calm that made her blood boil. "You can hate me later. Right now, you want to live." Before Alira could answer, the human moved like a machine. His gauntlets gripped the slab above her, servos. In his armor whining. Muscles flexed beneath plates of worn metal as he strained, lifting the massive block inch by inch. Dust poured down, and the stone cracked like ice, breaking on a frozen lake. Alira stared in shock. Humans weren't supposed to be strong like this. They weren't supposed to fight like this. Not alone. Not here. Yet this one moved with the own. Fury of a beast and the precision of a soldier. The slab shifted just enough for him to reach down and grab Navara. His gloved hands slid under her, gentle despite the strength in them. "I've got you, kid," he murmured. His voice softened for her in a way that startled Alira. Navara whimpered as he lifted her carefully. Her pale fingers clutched at his armor as if afraid to let go. For a moment, Alira felt something strange, something she had not felt since the palace fell. Relief when the human had Navara safe on higher ground. He crouched again, peering down at Alira. "Your turn," she bared her teeth. "Don't touch me." He tilted his head. Fine. You want to crawl out with your legs crushed? Go ahead. His words cut deep because they were true. Her pride burned like fire in her chest, but the pain in her legs was worse. She could not move without him. She hated that. She hated him. But she hated dying more. Do it, she spat, turning her face away. The human didn't speak again. His gauntlets locked under the slab that pinned her legs. He braced, his entire frame straining. Sparks flickered from his suit's joints as he roared in effort. With a deafening crack, the stone shifted enough for him to pull her free. Elira cried out as pain tore through her body, but she didn't scream. She wouldn't give him that dot when he lifted her in his arms. Her pride shattered. Like glass. His armor was cold, but his body was warm, his grip strong yet careful. She stared at the side of his helmet, hate boiling in her chest. And yet, under that hate, something else stirred. Something dangerous. Before she could think more, the ground shook with a deep, metallic roar. Dust exploded from the cracks above as something massive moved in the ruins. The sound was like a god waking from a 1,000-year sleep. A light bright and cruel pierced the shadows, followed by the hiss of plasma cannons charging. The human swore under his breath, pulling both sisters close. His voice was low, tight with urgency. Great. They brought a Titan-class hunter. He adjusted his grip, his visor glowing hotter, and whispered words that made Elira's heart pound faster than the quake beneath them. Hold on. We run now, or we all die. Then the roar came again, and the shadows lit up with fire. Asterisk. The roar shook the ruins like an earthquake. The light from the Titan's cannons burned through the dust, slicing the shadows apart. Elira's breath caught as the giant war machine emerged, its steel legs crushing marble like dry bones. Its head swiveled with a screech, glowing sensors locking onto them. Move, the human shouted. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Before Elira could argue, he shifted her weight in his arms, grabbed Navara with his free arm, and ran like death itself, chased them. The Titan's first blast tore through the chamber, a river of plasma melting the walls to liquid fire. Heat slammed against Elira's skin, stealing the air from her lungs. Shards of glowing stone exploded around them like burning rain. She buried her face against his chest. Rage and fear tangled inside her. He was human and enemy of her people, and yet his heart pounded steady against her cheek, as if saying, I will not let you die. The tunnel ahead collapsed in a thunder of stone. The human cursed, spun, and sprinted the other way. He moved like a storm, armor hissing as servos pushed him faster. Sparks trailed from his boots as he leapt over jagged debris with both sisters in his arms. The Titan roared again, its massive gun swiveling. The next blast struck the ground just behind them, a wave of searing heat chasing them down the shattered corridor. The air burned like fire in Elira's throat. Navara whimpered, clutching the human's shoulder, whispering, Please, don't drop me. He didn't answer. His jaw was set, his breath harsh in the helmet speaker. Every muscle in his body strained as he vaulted onto a fallen column, then down into a dark shaft that plunged into the lower levels. They landed hard on steel plating. Elira bit back a cry of pain as her injured legs screamed in protest. He set them down quickly, scanning the tunnel ahead. Sparks lit the darkness, and through the smoke, a faint blue glow flickered from his visor. Stay behind me, he said, voice rough but calm. And pray this thing slows down. Elira's pride wanted to spit venom, to tell him she needed no human's protection. But the words died in her throat when the ground shook again. The Titan was forcing its way into the shaft above, ripping metal apart with claws the size of starship wings. The human's hand shot out, grabbing Illyra's arm strong, unyielding and dragging her forward. "Move, princess," he barked. His tone was harsh, but there was something in it, something that sounded almost like desperation. They ran. Illyra stumbled, leaning against the tunnel wall for support. Every step was agony, but she forced herself on. Navara clung to her sisters, hand wide-eyed and pale. The human stayed close, covering their rear, his rifle sweeping the shadows. Then the Titan fired again. The plasma bolt tore through the tunnel, a river of molten fire that melted steel like wax. The shockwave hurled them forward. The sisters crashed to the ground, pain screaming through their bodies. Before Illyra could push herself up, the human was there. His gauntlet seized her wrist, yanking her upright like she weighed nothing. He hauled Navara to her feet next, his voice tight. "Keep moving. Just a little more?" They burst into a cavernous chamber, a maintenance bay, half buried under rubble. Rusted machines lay broken, their screens dead. The human's visor flickered as he scanned the space. His gaze landed on a stack of old plasma cells glowing faintly. In the corner, a low, humorless laugh crackled in his helmet. "That'll do." He sprinted to the cells, ripped two free, and jammed them into his pack. Then he pointed to a service door on the far wall. "Get through there, now." Illyra frowned, chest heaving. "What are you? Go." He snapped. There was something in his tone, a weight, a promise that froze her words. She grabbed Navara and limped toward the door, her heart slamming against her ribs. She looked back once and saw him standing there, setting the plasma cells in a line, his hands moving fast, his body tense like a coiled predator. The Titan's roar shook the chamber as its head smashed through the collapsed tunnel. Fire glowed in its maw. The human stood his ground, visor blazing blue, his rifle raised in one hand and a detonator in the other. Illyra's throat tightened. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to curse him. Instead, she whispered something she never thought. She would say, "Don't die, human." The door slammed shut behind her, just as the Titan unleashed a storm of fire dot, and then came the blast bright, enough to turn darkness into a second sun. Asterisk, the explosion painted the night in fire. For a breathless moment, the ruins glowed like the heart of a dying star. The roar of collapsing metal and screaming plasma drowned out everything else. Then silence cold and heavy fell across the broken empire. Illyra pressed her back to the rusted door, her chest heaving. Her arms were locked around Navara, who clung to her with trembling fingers. The heat from the blast still kissed there. Skin and the scent of burning steel filled the air. Her thoughts spun like shards of glass. The human, the fool. He stayed behind. He faced a Titan-class hunter alone. Why? Why would a human and enemy species, a forgotten race, risk his life for two princesses whose empire crushed his kind centuries ago? The question cut deep, and Illyra hated the feeling it left in her chest. Navara's voice broke through the haze, small and fragile. "Is he dead?" Illyra wanted to say yes. She wanted to tell herself that his death meant nothing, that it was what he chose, that it was what she wanted. But when her lips parted, the word wouldn't come. The silence was broken by a sound metal boots on steel, slow and steady, echoing through the maintenance tunnels behind them. Illyra stiffened. That wasn't him. No, this sound was heavier, meaner. Each step vibrated through the floor like the heartbeat of something monstrous. The door burst inward, torn apart like paper. Sparks flew, lighting the darkness in violent flashes. A figure stepped through the smoke towering, broad, his body half machine, half flesh. His eyes glowed like molten iron, burning with hate. Drax Vorin, the warlord who had shattered their empire, the butcher of the royal fleets. They Nightmare whispered in every shadow since the first worlds fell. He didn't speak at first. He simply stood there, scanning the room with a gaze that felt like knives pressing against skin. Then his voice came a deep, cold rumble that froze the blood in Illyra's veins. "You thought you could run." Illyra pushed Navara behind her, her broken legs screaming as she shifted her weight to stand taller. Her heart pounded like a war drum, but her voice came out steady. "Kill me if you must, but leave her." Drax's lips curled into something that might have been a smile, if not for the gleam of metal teeth. Noble. He stepped closer, the floor trembling under his boots. But pointless. His eyes flicked to Navara like a predator tasting. The heir. True royal bloodlines. Two bargaining chips. The galaxy will bend when they see what I've done to you. Illyra reached for the broken dagger at her hip. She would die before letting him touch her sister. Her grip tightened, her muscles coiled, then a voice cut through the smoke. "Step away from them." It was ragged, low, laced with pain, but it carried like thunder through the silence. Drax turned slowly, his molten gaze narrowing. From the shadows beyond the shattered doorway, a figure emerged, armor scorched black, helmet cracked, one arm hanging limp. And yet, in his other hand, the rifle still burned blue with power. The human alive I Lyra single quotes caught. Her mind screamed it was impossible. No one survived a Titan blast. No one. And yet here he was broken, bleeding, but standing like a wall of iron. Kellen's visor flickered as his head lifted. His voice was colder than the void between stars. "I said, step away." Drax laughed, a sound like grinding blades. "A human? This is who stands between me and two crowns." I expected more. Kalen moved forward, each step slow but unshaken. Smoke curled from the vents of his ruined suit. Sparks hissed from his shoulder, but his grip on the rifle never wavered. "Wanted more?" he said, voice sharp as steel. "I'm more than enough." Illyra's chest tightened as her eyes locked on him. The human who should have been ash now walked like a storm silent, relentless, terrifying. And in that moment, she felt something she never thought she'd feel for a human. Hope.Drax cracked his neck, cybernetic joints grinding. "Then come, little ape. Show me how you die." Kellen's visor glowed like a burning star. Gladly. The chamber shook as the two forces collided, man against monster, flesh against steel. A fight that would decide everything. Asterisk. The air burned with heat and hate. Sparks hissed like fireflies as Kalen stepped into the circle of broken light, every movement heavy with pain, but filled with something fiercer than steel. His armor was cracked, his ribs screamed with every breath, but his grip on the rifle was steady. Across from him, Drax Vorin loomed like a mountain of flesh and metal, his crimson blade humming with a low, hungry snarl. "You should have stayed dead, human," Drax growled, voice grinding like molten stone. Kalen tilted his head, visor glowing with blue fire. His words came out calm, too calm, like ice over a raging sea. And miss the stance? Not a chance. The warlord charged first. The ground split beneath his weight, and the chamber thundered as steel met steel. Kalen rolled aside, his boots scraping sparks, and fired a burst of plasma into Drax's cybernetic chest. The shots burned deep, smoke curling from glowing wounds, but the warlord didn't slow. He slammed his blade down in an arc meant to split Kalen in half. The human moved like lightning. Pain flared through his broken body, but his reflexes were pure survival. He twisted, the blade kissing his shoulder instead of his neck, tearing metal and flesh. He gritted his teeth and rammed his gauntlet into Drax's jaw. The punch landed with a sickening crack. Blood and oil splattered the floor. "You fight." "Like a beast," Drax snarled, his metal teeth bared. Kalen spat blood inside his helmet and laughed, a sound cold enough to freeze suns. You've seen nothing. He triggered the charge. Blue arcs of energy screamed across his suit as the progenitor relic in his pack flared alive, feeding raw power into his armor. His systems howled, warning of overload, but Kalen didn't care. He launched forward like a thunderbolt. The chamber erupted in chaos. Kalen hit Drax with inhuman speed, his blade and rifle becoming whirlwinds of death. Sparks cascaded like waterfalls. His steel clashed against alien alloy. Each strike carried a roar of fury and something deeper. This wasn't just a fight. This was vengeance. For every colony burned. For every human enslaved. For the sister he couldn't save. For himself. Drax howled as Kellen's blade carved across his cybernetic arm, tearing through wires and steel. The warlord swung back with bone-breaking force, slamming Kalen against a wall so hard the metal dented. Pain exploded through him, but Kalen didn't fall. He pushed off the wall like a beast unchained and drove his knife into Drax's side, right between armor plates. Blood gushed black and steaming. You think this changes anything? Drax roared, his voice shaking the ceiling. Your species is nothing. Kellen's visor glowed brighter, his voice a whisper carved from rage. Say that when you're choking on your own blood. He tore the knife free and jammed his rifle under Drax's jaw. With a scream that ripped through his throat like fire, Kalen unleashed a storm of plasma. The blast lit the room like a newborn sun. When the smoke cleared, Drax staggered, his face half melted, his breath ragged. But he didn't fall. His blade slashed blindly, grazing Kellen's chest. Sparks showered. Kellen's suit screamed alarms, systems dying one by one, and still he advanced step by step, bleeding, broken, burning alive inside his own armor. He ripped the detonator from his belt. The plasma cells he'd set earlier blinked red, waiting. His voice came low, almost a growl. Game over, Vorin. Drax's eyes widened for the first time, not in rage, but in something close to fear. You wouldn't, Kalen smiled. A hard, blood-streaked smile that didn't belong to a man anymore, but to a force of nature. Watch me. He slammed the trigger. Light swallowed the world. Fire roared like 1,000 suns as the chamber exploded, tearing the air apart. Alira screamed his name as the blast wave hurled her and Navara through the exit hatch, flames chasing them like a living beast. Then came silence, a silence that tasted like death. Asterisk smoke curled against the shattered sky. The ruins lay silent, except for the distant hiss of cooling metal. The chamber where the fight had raged was now a crater of twisted steel and burning stone. Alira dragged herself out from under a fallen girder, her body bruised and bleeding. Her hands trembled as she clawed across the scorched floor toward Navara, who lay only a few steps away. She pulled her sister into her arms, clutching her tight, her heart breaking with relief when Navara stirred and whispered, I'm okay. But Alira's eyes weren't on her sister now. They were on the flames. Kalen, she whispered. The name tore from her throat like a wound. She pushed to her knees, ignoring the agony in her legs. Kalen! The smoke gave no answer, only the crackle of fire and the distant groan of metal. He was gone, burned away in the inferno he had unleashed, and for the first time in her life, Alira felt truly empty. She had hated him when he appeared. She had cursed his name, spat venom at his kindness. And yet, that human had stood between her and death. He had fought like no warrior she had ever known, not for a crown, not for glory, just because he refused to let them die. And now he was gone. Tears blurred her vision as she bowed her head over Navara's shoulder. Her breath shook. Her pride was dust. Why? She whispered to the ashes. Why did you do this? A sound cut through the silence. A cough. Harsh, wet, human. Alira froze. Her head snapped toward the flames as shadows moved. And then through. The smoky came. Kalen staggered out of the inferno, armor blackened and cracked open, like the shell of something that had crawled out of hell. Blood streaked his face where the visor had shattered. His left arm hung limp. His right clutched a rifle burned down to slag. Every step was a miracle, every breath a war, but he was alive. Alira couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. All she could do was watch him, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. He dropped the rifle with a clang, his voice hoarse and broken. "You're both still breathing." Something inside Alira shattered completely. She stumbled toward him, catching his weight as his knees gave out. His blood soaked into her torn robes, hot and real. She gripped him with all the strength left in her trembling arms. "Why?" She choked out. Her silver eyes burned with tears. She couldn't hold back. "Why would you do this for us?" Kellen's lips twisted in a faint smile, cracked and bleeding but soft. "Because someone has to remind this galaxy that humans don't run." His words hit her like a blade through the heart. She pressed her forehead against his, her tears falling into the cracks of his armor. In that moment, she knew he was no longer just a human. He was the man who had turned her hate into something far more dangerous. They were still kneeling there when the sky above them split with the roar of engines. Rebel ships, sleek and silver, swept over the ruins like a tide of hope. Soldiers poured down on beams of blue light, surrounding the crumbled fortress. The first officer froze when he saw who knelt in the firelight. His voice cracked in shock. "Is that the princesses? And a human?" Another whispered. Alira rose slowly, still holding Kalen against her. Her voice was steady now, sharper than any blade. "This man saved us. He faced Vorin. Alone, he won. If any being in this galaxy doubts the worth of humanity," her gaze burned like a nova, "tell them what you saw here." The words spread like fire, from soldiers to commanders, from ships to fleets. Within days, across systems, a human defied death. A human killed Vorin. A human saved the last royal heirs of a fallen empire. In the shadow of ruin, Kalen Ward became a name that shook the stars. Later, aboard the medship, Alira sat by his bed. His chest rose and fell under white sheets, his body laced with scars and healing wounds. Navarra slept in the next room, safe for the first time in weeks. Alira's fingers brushed his hand, and for a long moment she simply stared at him. Pat, the man who had destroyed everything she believed about humans and rebuilt something stronger. When Kellen's eyes opened, blue and tired but burning with life, her breath caught. He gave her that same broken smile and whispered, "Still here." Alira leaned close, her voice soft as starlight. "You didn't just save us, Kalen." She swallowed hard, her heart in her throat. "You changed the galaxy." And in the silence between them, with the hum of the medship and the stars beyond the glass, she knew this was not an ending. It was the beginning of something the universe would never forget. *, the end.